Okay, so the next section is going to be on electronic communication. Electronic communication can be email, it can be social media, it can be blogging, so anything involving the internet. The very first thing to remember about electronic communication is HIPAA. Unless you are using a secure channel, you should not be putting any patient information into an email or any kind of electronic communication, email, text, etc. Some facilities have secure channels specifically for electronic communication. Some EHRs have a communication channel, but you should not be using social media, email, or any unsecure channel to communicate patient information. Now, when you are using electronic media, there's some basic etiquette things you need to know about. Make sure that you're using the appropriate level of formality. The formality might be different, or should be different between when you're communicating with a superior or you're communicating with a provider versus posting on social media. Make sure you're using the appropriate level of formality. You should always be professional in work-related communication. And professional doesn't always mean formal, but you should know when to use formal language. Professional does mean not being offensive. You should indicate if your communication is urgent and if you need a response. People's inboxes are crammed, so if there's something you need a response to, make sure that they're aware of it. Please use the subject line to specify what your communication is about, because that helps people to be able to find communications that they need. Be cautious with sensitive documents. Avoid abbreviations and symbols, especially when the communication needs to be more formal. Abbreviations can cause confusion and can be misinterpreted, and symbols are also not necessarily universal, so be cautious with that. Put the most important information first. People have short attention spans and they get distracted, so put what's important at the top. Don't bury the lead. Avoid color or unusual fonts in professional communication. It might be fun to email your mom with funny fonts, but please don't do that in professional communication. Unusual colors, unusual fonts can make it actually more difficult to read your communication, and it's considered unprofessional because of that. Typically, we want black, we want a font large enough to see, and we want mostly Times New Roman or Arial. There are a few other fonts that would be considered professional communication, but we don't want something like Comic Sans. Forward a communication only if it is relevant to the receiver and acceptable to the sender. Make sure that you reply only to the appropriate person. Watch the reply all button. Reply all has actually ended careers. Be sure that attachments, names, etc. are correct. Address the recipient, especially in the first communication. Sometimes if you've got an email chain going, you may begin formally and then the emails kind of become responsive, but always begin the communication at least with by addressing the recipient and signing appropriately. Check spelling and grammar and avoid all caps. All caps is considered screaming in online etiquette. There are people who use all caps because they find it easier to see, but you should not be using all caps in professional communication because it's considered yelling. Use of social media. Social media networks may be used for both personal and professional reasons, and there are quite a few people who have either separate accounts that have a professional and a personal social media account on a given platform. But there are also people who use their personal social media for work-related networking. If you use your personal social media for work-related networking, remember that colleagues and superiors can see your personal profile. So think about what you want them to see. That doesn't mean you always need to be in business attire and be formal in your social media. It is your social life, but be aware of, is this a position that you want your professional contacts to see you in? Even if you do not use a personal social media profile for work, inappropriate or illegal behavior documented on social media has been used as a cause for termination, and it may be reported to the Board of Nursing. So make sure that you're not documenting any illegal activity on your social media. HIPAA, again, we're going to circle back to HIPAA. HIPAA in social media is a minefield. Do not describe patient situations on social media. Even if you leave out names and identifying information, it's possible to provide enough details that that person can be identifiable, and that has also ended careers. Okay, we're going to come back and talk about communicating with different people that we might work with in a healthcare setting.